The Dallas Cowboys defensive line is starting to dominate. We'll tell you what's changed outside of Quinnen Williams next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And on today's episode, we're continuing to break down the Cowboys' big win over the Kansas City Chiefs on Thanksgiving Day. But Landon, I want to start with the defensive line. We're going to get to some of the man coverage stuff. We'll get to the offensive line, but I want to start with the defensive line. They gave up 28 points, but you could really feel the impact of the Cowboys' defensive line in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the thing that we've kind of been, used to. The early part of the season was this defensive line was not able to get the pressure that we had wanted it to, especially obviously after the Micah Parsons trade, and the ability to rush the passer was just something that the Cowboys defensive line hadn't quite developed yet, and they didn't quite have the horses for. And so that just kind of further exposed the problems that the Cowboys had early on in the back end of this defensive backfield. And so it's such a kind of refreshing thing to see them being able to apply pressure on the quarterback finally and find new ways to kind of do it too. And I think that that's really what's been interesting, is that they found kind of a formula that doesn't include necessarily having to have a super top end pass edge rusher. They're doing it mostly by generating pressure up the middle of the defense.
Now, they are blitzing every once in a while. And I think they've gotten kind of smarter in their way they're blitzing. But
yeah,
for the most part, it's just the way that they're deploying these guys. And we're going to talk about the defensive line rotation, but they had 31 pressures in this game. I mean, that is a ton of pressures. On 65% of the snaps, Patrick Mahomes was pressured on. I mean, that's insane. And you're getting it from not just Quinnen Williams. You're getting these games where it's like this week, it was Kenny Clark had 6 pressures. Donovan Ezeiruaku had 1 last week. He had 5 this week. Jadeveon Clowney had 2 sacks. He had 4 pressures. You're starting to get into like the depth of this unit. And that's what they just didn't have early in the season. But now you add someone in like Quinnen Williams, you get a fresher Kenny Clark. Donovan Ezeiruaku is coming into his own. And that's how you get a game like that.
Yeah, and I think it's not just that the personnel is all kind of fitting better, but because the personnel is fitting better and there's more trust there, you're seeing more blitzing, you're seeing more man coverage, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I think that has everything to do with trust in the players that are on the field versus what they had previous, right? Like they just didn't trust the guys that were out there to be able to do anything more than just zone coverage. So yeah, they're able to match up a little bit more, which I think we've seen these last few weeks. They're and I don't even just mean man coverage. I mean they're able to change their fronts to match who they're facing and just kind of create mismatches at all along the front of the defensive line and obviously the backfield as well. So I think that's really been a huge thing. It's not even just that the talent is a lot better, but the talent has unlocked the coach's ability to deploy these guys in kind of more interesting ways. And that's actually one of the interesting things I kind of wanted to talk about was, you got Quinnen Williams, you've got Osa Odigizua, you got Kenny Clark. Our question was always going to be like, how are they going to deploy all these guys? Are they just going to play a bunch of 5-man fronts? But they found sort of an interesting, fit for all these guys. They have Osa and Quinnen kind of playing from the 2-eye out to the 5, right? Like you're not, I mean, I'm saying the 2-eye, though they're not playing very much of it. It's mostly 3 technique to 5 technique. And they're kind of moving these guys around to kind of create different mismatches. Obviously stunts and twists are all part of that as well. And then Kenny Clark is the one who's ending up playing most of the between the guard snaps, like as a true 0 or 1 technique, taking on a lot of double teams, though Quinnen is still seeing double teams as well. I think that it's been interesting to see how they've rotated all these guys. There's been times when all of them have been in the field at the same time, but you've also seen them kind of be deployed in different, and everyone have kind of different roles a little bit. And then finally, I think the other thing that you kind of hinted towards is just a readjustment of the snaps.
Yeah.
it's more fitting to the talent of the players, right? You've seen Sam Williams, and I have some numbers here, play fewer snaps. When playing more than 25 snaps, and PFF grades are obviously not the end all, and that I feel that way, but just as a baseline, right? When playing more than 25 plus snaps, which is more than half the season, that Sam's played more than 25 snaps, he's got a 47.9 grade. When playing less than 25 snaps a game, he's got a grade of 64, which is above average, right? And so he's playing better on less snaps. And then on the other side, James Houston, right? It's James Houston. He's when playing more than 15 snaps, he's got a less than 15 snaps. I'm sorry, he's got a 52 grade, and when playing more than 15, he's got a 69.2 grade. He's playing better with more snaps. So I think it's just allowed them to readjust everyone's role a little bit. They've kind of tinkered with everything, and things have just kind of all fallen into place all at once.
Yeah, and we should mention like Donovan Ezeiruaku early on in the season wasn't playing a ton of snaps. And again, totally understandable. He's a second-round pick. You want to ease him into the rotation. But, he played 40 of the 60-something snaps this week. I think he had the most snaps of any of your defensive ends. Just double-checking. Yeah, you played the most snaps of any of your defensive ends. That feels about right. The next highest defensive end was Jadeveon Clowney. And that feels right because if you were to ask me who are your two best run-defending defensive ends, I think it's Jadeveon Clowney and Donovan Ezeiruaku. So it does feel like they're starting to get the rotation right a little bit. I did have one question about the defensive tackles. Now, we didn't see a big game from Solomon Thomas. He's still working his way back from a calf injury. Perion Winfrey is yet to play after being on the injured reserve list. I know they're playing a lot of 3 defensive tackle looks. I still feel like there's a need on this team for like a really awesome nose tackle. If you had like a great nose tackle that could play 15 or 20 snaps, you could do so many fun things with this unit. I know we're not going to probably talk about a nose tackle as a big need this offseason, but man, I really do feel like it would unlock so much of this defense.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it would make things, if you had a really big guy that commanded a double team, it certainly would make things difficult for the opposing team's offensive line to get 2 bodies on Quinnen Williams, right?
Yeah, I'm saying like an actual guy that doesn't get moved out of the spot. Like, one of these 350-pound guys that you want 15 snaps a game, and that's it.
Yeah, and listen, if you get Quinnen Williams, one-on-one blocks, especially on the backside of some of these runs, oh boy, like it could get really, really ugly for teams. So I wouldn't, be shocked. Like, I mean, it's going to be interesting when we get to the end of the season to see exactly how the Cowboys handle this situation. Like, there certainly are a couple different ways to look at this situation. Is it a luxury or is it a hamper to have all of your talent kind of at defensive tackle, and then specifically to have 2 guys that are very specifically kind of similar in how you would want to deploy them, even if their games aren't very similar, right? So,
well, if they keep winning games and they win 6 or 7 games in a row, I think we could probably say it's a nice little thing to have. There's just very few teams in the league that have this luxury. And man, when you can throw out guys that are fresh, that can get up the field, the opposing quarterbacks can handle edge pressure because they can step up, they can move around. When you're getting pressure right in your face and you're able to stop the run on first and second down, man, you can just build an entire defense out of that thing alone.
If you can find a way to generate edge pressure, which you can, blitzing, and you have a couple of up and coming pass rusher who you like a lot. You also got 2 first-round picks next year. You can find a way to get some more help on the edge. To me, as the season goes on and I see how this gets deployed and I look around the league and how the league is trending offensively, I think you should keep all 3 of these guys.
Yeah, real quick. I think the Cowboys are going to be like the premier destination for these one-year pass rushers like Jadeveon Clowney, like Dante Fowler, because if you're going to a team that has all this defensive tackle talent, why wouldn't you want to play in Dallas, on turf where you can get up the field and you're never going to get double teamed? It's a great spot to be in. I want to talk about the coverage because we're starting to see the Cowboys play more man coverage, especially considering they played 0% to start the year. Will that continue with Trevon Diggs expected to re-enter the lineup? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be absolutely massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. And that is why Game Time is absolutely clutch for all sports fans. They finally give an advantage to real fans when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track the prices all week long, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and it makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. My favorite thing is that you could open up the app and get an exact view of your seat before you purchase your tickets. You're going to know exactly what every pitch looks like, what it's going to look like in the NFL stadium when you're watching your favorite teams play. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, every concert and event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download Game Time today. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'd also like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. Landon, let's talk about the coverage in this game because I thought the pass rush was really good. The coverage for the most part was, now there were a couple breaks, including, a big play to Ezeiruaku on a scramble, but I thought for the most part, the coverage was not awful in this one.
Yeah, I mean, we have to consider the context here too. Like, obviously, you lose Kalen Carson, who had been playing pretty decent football, to a hamstring. He was kind of a game time decision. They went out and worked him on the field, and it didn't look like he was ready to go quite yet. I feel like maybe that was a situation where if they were making a choice, right? They're like, man, I think we definitely need him for this Detroit game. If we lose this KC game, we still could be mathematically in the playoffs. We need to win these NFC games. Let's not push it with Kalen Carson. But it turned out okay. Obviously, you won the game. Even Bland left the game for several different huge parts of the game with a foot injury and some other stuff. And the coverage wasn't so terrible. And I think that the kind of bigger picture situation here is that, we came into this game knowing that they needed to play more man coverage, right? They obviously, they've obviously been a very heavy zone team, like you mentioned. And last week against the previous week against the Eagles, it made a lot of sense to play a lot of zone coverage because that's what was effective against Jalen Hurts. So there was a lot of kind of symmetry there that you felt like the Cowboys could just lean into a little bit. The challenge this week with Mahomes was that you're going to need to play more man coverage, and could the Cowboys kind of get away with it? And they did. They ended, they normally have been averaging overall 12.3% man coverage. Now, that also includes this latest game. So that number is actually probably a little bit lower than it was going into this game. They ran 30% man coverage against KC, which, is obviously more than twice as much. And it was effective enough that they were able to kind of get what they needed, enough stops to win that game. And I think that was important. I'll add in too that I think it's time to kind of recognize, maybe not, promote or sign long-term, but it's time to recognize the steadying presence of Reedy Stewart, right? Like the fact that you were able to get league average slot play from this guy when you're missing one of your corners, you can plug him in, and that allows Bland to go back out and cover up and play the boundary if you need him to, which obviously through most of the season you have. I think it's really been a big benefit for this team. He's played decent coverage and decent as a tackler and in the run game, and that's all you've really needed from him. He's just not getting you beat. And after seeing kind of some of the folks that they've had to cycle in at different points in this team, it's been really nice to be able to kind of just throw Stewart out there and not just get absolutely destroyed because, in a game of Pat Mahomes whack-a-mole because he found your underachieving nickelback and just basically, spams the worthy the whole time to try to exploit it.
I mean, that I always think long-term with this team. I think you're moving forward. The hope is that like your corners are Bland, Revel, and maybe Carson, and Bland is the guy that can play on the inside. And Reedy Stewart is the backup guy that you maybe play in the slot if Bland's going to play on the outside for that game. We should mention Reedy Stewart. He is an exclusive restricted free agent in 2026. And that is a long way of saying that he'll be back.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere with that kind of contract usually. So
yeah,
and again,
honestly, what it means is he's under contract for the next 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. And again, just a guy that and I don't actually know, he's 27?
24. 24.
Oh, he's that young. Wow, that's great. Yeah, I mean, just plays kind of like a veteran, heads up. And I had forgotten. I just figured that with the experience that we know that he had in Chicago, that he was a little bit older. But that's great. Yeah, you'll have him locked up for the next 2 years. He's obviously got a lot of experience to grow a little bit. And even if his role is just basically coming in as a nickel guy, he could play a little bit of safety for you. He's a very undersized guy for what Will McClay usually likes in a defensive back, but he's been effective in this system and he's played a little bit of everything. So yeah, I don't know if he's a guy that I'm like, excited about starting every week to week.
No,
but he's not going to get you beat. He's not going to be the reason that you lose a football game, which is nice, honestly, considering what we've had out at the defensive back, field for the Cowboys early in the season.
These are not the players that end up, getting the Sports Illustrated covers or that people talk about on Twitter, but they are a lot of times the guys that end up deciding these really close games. The guys that you can put in, they're not fantastic, but they don't get you killed. You put them out there and you feel good about it. You need more guys like Reedy Stewart. I do think he's had a nice little season for Dallas. One more thing in the coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one of the reasons why we did not see a lot of man-to-man coverage early in the year is there's a couple players out there that I don't think can cover at all. And two of them are your linebackers and one is your other safety, Donovan Wilson. I just keep looking forward. Like you might be drafting a linebacker and a safety with your first two picks. And I hate the positional value of those two, but if you clean up those spots, man, I think this defense, the ceiling is so high.
Yeah, I would stop. I do think that it's, we should start trending back towards enjoying or not being okay with the positional value of those two specific positions, because as the game sort of trends back towards, a little bit more heavy-handed football, a little bit more run game based football, with teams kind of reacting to too high shell becoming more of the norm. I think that you're going to need these athletes who can play both the run and the pass on the second and third levels. And that it requires a certain tier of athlete that I don't think, you've had these last 5 or 6 years on defense. You've been trending more and more towards these lighter bodies, the kind of nebulousness of safeties and Marquise Bell obviously is the best example of that. Yeah. The kind of way that you've kind of gone back and forth between the second and third level. I think that trend is going to start reversing a little bit, as you're going to need athletes who can handle the run, to be physical inside the box while also being able to turn around and run the pole and be able to get back in the field. So I think those kind of athletes are rare to get. And that's why you got, guys like Reese being talked about in the top end of the
Sonny
draft.
Styles.
Yeah.
Or guys, Ohio State, the former safety that's playing linebacker. Like if the Cowboys draft a linebacker and a safety next year, I actually won't be upset, because so many of their issues is a strong word. The big plays that are happening are because of your safeties and your linebackers. You've got two veteran linebackers out there, one that can't run and the other one who doesn't know where to run. And those are, honestly, that's more often than not, those are the two guys that are creating the biggest issues.
Yeah. And look, again, I think for the Cowboys, they need defensive talent. Where they get it and how they insert it there. Maybe we shouldn't poo-poo it at this point, especially where the Cowboys might end up picking. So, we'll talk all about that later. But I do think, at least you're starting to see the shape of where this defense needs to be and the holes that it needs to fill. And at least it's heading in the right direction, I think, especially along the front. And that gives you hope for the future. And at least how to fill the gaps that you're going to have on this defense going into.
Yeah, and it's crazy that, week 14 against the Lions, we could see Deron Bland, Trevon Diggs, Kalen Carson, and Savon Ravel all out on the field at the same time. I'm very curious to see what that cornerback room looks like, what the rotations look like. We'll find out on Thursday. Let's talk about the Cowboys offensive line in this one, because Dak Prescott and the offense, they scored 31 points. Was it because of the offensive line or was it because of something else? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports. We've got bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes, and it's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, it's fast, and it's available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the entire process smooth and simple. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast. 2 shows every single day. 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Landon, let's talk about the Cowboys offensive line in this one. The Chiefs don't have the best edge rushers, but Nate Thomas and Terrence Steele didn't get you killed out there. What did you think about the Cowboys' offensive tackles in this game?
Yeah, I thought that they mostly did a good job, especially in pass protection. I mean, look, let's actually take kind of a step back and look holistically about protection schemes and what they were facing. Spags is one of the best at getting free runners going against your offense, right? And what that ultimately means, just to kind of break it down a little bit, is let's say you have a 5-man protection scheme going on, they'll send 6. So there's one more guy than you have blockers for, and then you have to deal with it. And usually the basic rule of thumb in those situations that last man, the free runner, that's on the quarterback. And the quarterback has to beat that player with the ball. He's got to get the ball out on time and to wherever his hot is, and hopefully filling from where the blitzer is in order to create a big play. And not a lot of quarterbacks, or not every quarterback, can do that. And this is one area where Dak is one of the best in the league. He's a veteran guy. He's seen it all. And this was a really great chess match that you got to watch. Is how would Dak handle the situation of when there were free runners? And there were several different opportunities where even when they were able to kind of sort things out, and you saw an excellent kind of coordination between the guys up front and Williams in the backfield cleaning up the blitzers, there was still one more extra guy to come. And it's the classic saying, chaos is a ladder, right? Mm-hmm. And it's an opportunity for Dak to find the kind of open man that's being brought free because of the extra guy coming after him, throw the ball behind him and create big plays. And time after time, Dak was able to find guys behind the blitz and make Spags pay for it. And I think that's really the difference that you see with a guy like Dak Prescott versus some of these other, quarterbacks around here is sometimes you see some of these guys are able to beat it with their legs, but the truly dangerous guys like Dak, they can beat the blitz with their arms, and they can create big plays and make teams pay for, expending all those extra resources for coming after the quarterback.
Nate Thomas in the game, I think you go back and watch it, he was not nearly as good as maybe you think on the broadcast tape. He got beat quite a few times. Now, again, Dak, Brian Schottenheimer, Clayton Adams did a really good job of making sure that he wasn't the reason why the offense didn't succeed. So kudos to them. I do think we need to remember there's still a pretty big gap right now between Tyler Guyton and Nate Thomas. So if you see people on X saying, hey, the Cowboys should, keep Thomas at left tackle, just know that's misguided.
Yeah, I mean, look, Dak's incredible. The fact that he was able to maintain a higher than 50% success rate despite being pressured, I mean, that just shows you who Dak Prescott is, right? I think the other area where you really, feel like there's a gap between Nate Thomas and Guyton is the yards before contact, run blocking aspect of it, right? And this is an area where it feels like the offensive line still needs to kind of continue to grow. This game against Kansas City was their second lowest performance in yards before contact of the season besides their week. I think it was 3 performances where they averaged negative yards per carry. But it didn't look so bad because they got such a great performance from their running backs after contact, right? Williams was really great. You obviously had the explosive runs from Davis as well, and Turpin. So the Cowboys need to be better there on the offensive line as far as blocking, but they kind of made up for it with the running backs in this game.
I'm going to ask you this question. I want you to think about it. I'm not asking you who's had the best career up to this point or who's going to have the best career, but who is the Cowboys' best offensive lineman this minute?
I think it's Tyler Booker. I mean, just based on the last 2 weeks, he has been absolutely incredible week to week with facing Jalen Carter and then Jones this last week. Every opportunity he's gotten to go against elite guys, he's not only been up to par, but at times dominated guys who are frankly current all pros.
I agree with you. I still, if I'm betting long term on their best offensive lineman, it's Tyler Smith, but he's clearly playing through at least one injury. We know he's dealing with knee tendonitis. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got other injuries, and it's affecting his play. He's not playing poorly. I don't think this was the best game for him. I thought he struggled a little bit, but I tend to agree with you. I think right now Booker is their best offensive lineman.
It's just been really impressive. You're just watching him use techniques and do things physically that you just don't see other guys. I mean, the way he's able to control, like I said, all pro level interior guys with one hand and just recover with, he uses his strength and his power and his balance in a way that even if he's getting beat, he's able to recover in such a way that it's just so impressive. You don't see young guys be able to do this. They don't come into the league with the sort of requisite power to be able to do the things that he's able to do. And again, it's not just about dominating guys. It's about making up for your own mistakes with it by using your power. And that's what we've seen him do time in and time out, especially these last few weeks.
He gave up 7 pressures to the Giants in week 2, 10 from week 3 on. I mean, he's playing at a really, really high level. And usually for these offensive guards, like these powerful ones, you don't start getting that power till age 26, 27. He's 21 and he's already playing at that level. So very, very, very good sign for the Cowboys long term. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen of the day. Follow the show on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.